what's the guy's name that goes before us?
Oh, Buck Rising.
Yeah, the Buck
That is
Rising.
the
And
Buck Rising. We
and
all
then you
just
have
swim in his wake.
exactly, and
Yeah.
then you have you're a pro because you've been doing this, so it doesn't matter who's coming before or after. I'm an independent contractor, so coming in, I know I got to have my mind right, especially with Slade Dunn and Brent next. So
Is calling me that just another way to say, like, man, you're old?
nah, you're a pro.
Okay, good
I
deal.
feel like pros, it doesn't matter what the situation is, they know what they're gonna do. You're prepared. Your game plan isn't really gonna change. Who's lining up in front of me, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna take them out, and you're that type of assassin, and you're a performer. Come on, you got decades under your belt.
Boy.
You don't get no stage fright.
Oh, no, zero stage fright.
There you go.
So, okay, well, let's just go down this road because you mentioned this. So, for people who don't know, I've been a musician for a long time, 30-plus years. And people ask me all the time before, like, gosh, you ever get stage fright? I'm like, no, I get prepared. And
right.
Then I'm just ready to go do my thing.
Yeah.
I didn't have to throw up in the trash can. I was just ready to, I prepared. I was ready to do my thing.
And even with sports, that goes a long way. As a player, I was never nervous. I was never, what if they do this? What if they do that? There's going to be some type of wrinkle that you can't prepare for.
Yep.
But going into that game, I was prepared for any situation that they've done in the last 5 to 6 games. So, me going out there and having performing well was never an issue, like in my mind. Now, when you get out there, you never know what can happen.
Stuff happens.
Right, for sure.
The craziest thing I'll ask you, what's the craziest thing that ever happened to you? Were you totally prepared and then you got out there and then you thought, okay, I didn't prepare for any of this, but you still made it work?
You know what? So there was I think it might have been like the 04-05 season. We weren't playing too well. And I'm a big film guy. I got to watch film. I got to know what's going on. And like towards the end of that year, I think it was like we were like maybe 4-11 at the time or whatever. One of those 5-11 or 4-12 seasons. So towards like probably this time of the year, the last 3 games, I just didn't watch film. Like I just went into the game and I think that was the only 3 times in my besides when I got to the Giants and I knew I wasn't towards the end of the year when I knew I wasn't going to get in the game. but yeah, that year, one of those years.
Starter. What are you talking about, man?
Nah, those like 3 games. I went through a 3-game period. It was the end of the year. We were just playing that bad, and I just didn't watch film. And it was all right, nothing glaring, But I didn't like that feeling. Like I didn't like the feeling of Sunday morning, just lining up, everything until it was just something different because obviously there was a piece of preparation that wasn't taken that I normally take.
Did it almost feel like, because you were a preparer, did it almost feel like part of you was kind of missing?
Yeah, I felt naked. Like I felt like I was naked. Like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I felt like I was naked. Like I didn't like the feeling of not being prepared. Like someone could have taken advantage of me or a situation could have taken advantage of me and put me in a bad position that I'm not normally in.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So that's, I can tell you, I was playing a big concert. I've played, I don't know, probably 1,200 shows or something in my life.
Wow.
And I was playing this orchestral piece that required a bass to play with it. And so I can't read music. So I just learned it note for note. Sweet. I just listened to it till I learned. It was 12 pages long. I learned every bit of it. And so at one point, one of the orchestral musicians asked me afterwards, did I hear you say you couldn't read music? I said, man, I can't read music. He said, how did you just do that? I said, I learned it. I just listened to it till I learned it. Said I spent 20 hours on this week.
Wow.
So I learned it.
That's a skill. That's wow. That's impressive. That is impressive.
My friend tweeted me, though, Jason Eskridge, who's a fantastic musician. You would love this guy, by the way.
I know Jason.
Everybody knows
Jason.
Jason.
I know Jason.
He knows that I hate E-flat. It's my least favorite note. So, of course, he texted me and said, you're never prepared for E-flat. No one's prepared for that. How can the Titans prepare for the Texans on Sunday? And I ask you this because, Keith, we got 2 hours we got to listen to. We have 52 minutes now. They've lost 4 in a row for the first time under Mike Vrabel, first time in 7 years. They'd never lost more than 3. So anybody who has been a Titan, because Lawan would be the only guy who predated Mike Vrabel, and he's out right now. So anybody who has only been a Titan, they've never lost 4 games in a row. If they've only been a Titan, only Lawan has, and he's out right now. So you got that. Tannehill's beat up. It wouldn't surprise me if we saw Malik Willis for another game. Your offensive line, they may call you this week and see if you can put on 200 pounds and come and play. What's it like in a locker room? You're a leader. You're Keith Bulluck. I'm going to throw you into that mix. What's that like?
I mean, if I'm just taking my football personality, we're already in the playoffs. We're on a little bit of a skid, but at the same time, we went on a 6-0 winning streak at some point in the season. Jacksonville has to come into – now you have to look at what's in front of you. You gotta lay it out. We got the Texans coming in who we've already beat. We got Dallas who we know that we can beat. Mm-hmm. And then we got Jacksonville, and that game is probably going to mean something. You got to look at it like that. So, I don't think it calls for, a players-only meeting, but my intensity would be up at practice. I think as a leader, especially when I played, that was the best way to lead because I feel I was never a rah-rah guy, like, hey, come on, guys. So the best way is to pick my intensity up at practice. And I'm sure they're not going in pads or anything like that. But however I could, pick my intensity up, my approach to practice, my approach to the week, I might say something in our defensive meeting room to our defense because at the end of the day, only thing I can control is defense and the players on the field with me. So there's a sense of urgency for all of the starters and all of the backups because the way that this team is going, someone goes down every week, and it's very important for the next guy that's in line to get up to be prepared and be prepared to make plays,
Right.
So for me, it always starts in the beginning of the week. And, at this point in the playoffs, someone's on your tail. You got to let your nuts hang, as simple as that, because ain't nobody coming into that locker room to save them at this point. They'll be, it'll be helpful if they can get Cunningham back, maybe Burks back, some of the guys that are like teetering on, that just come off IR that are injured. But these guys also have to make a decision as well. Obviously, it's a different game. You want, than when I played. You want everybody to be as healthy as they can. But at this point, you're not going to be your healthiest. So how bad do you want it? I just think it's one of those things where everyone has to look themselves in the mirror and look each other in the eyes and be like, yo, fellas, let's go. It's still right here in our grasp. We have it in the palm of our hands. Let's go ahead and finish the job. Because if they go out on a 3-game win streak, no one's going to remember these last 4. If they put together some good football down the stretch and, you want to go into the playoffs on a high note, but I know that they definitely have to get a win this week for sure. A win against Dallas would be great. And then obviously you finish with Jacksonville. The motto was 1 game at a time, but this game is huge.
At what point in your career did you feel like you were old enough or experienced enough or accomplished enough to be the guy who would stand up in a meeting and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking?
I would say like probably like my 4th or 5th year, because there was like probably my 4th year. My 3rd year, I would speak up, but then like my 4th year, Samari Rowe was still there, Lance Schulters was still there, Eddie George was still. So we still had some leaders. Still, Steve was still there. So I'd say my 5th year because the cupboard was bare.
Oh my God!
There's no Steve. There's no Eddie. There's no Samari. Nope. There's nobody from that original '99, 2000 era team. And it was all me. And I remember Marcus Robinson, he was working in as player development. And he told me, he just walked by me in the building one day and said that you play way too hard to let this BS, take place. So pretty much that was him telling me, the way I hold myself accountable enough that I'm in position that I can start holding other people accountable. But with that, when you choose to take that type of leadership, you always have to be on point. Like you can never, mess up. And I loved that challenge. That was one of the greatest challenges, of my career for sure.
Keith Bulluck going to be hanging out for these 2 hours. Okay, here's what we'll do next. We do a segment every Tuesday. Our director of content, among others, Blaine Bishop, among his many titles. What caught your attention this week in the world of sports? We'll hit that. We'll continue to talk Titans as well. There's also some Ryan Tannehill news from Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network. We will get to that. If you want to talk to Keith, you got phone calls, you got something that caught your attention, we got open line, 615-737-1045 on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. It is Blaine and Mickey with special guest, the one and only Mr. Monday Night. Blaine and Mickey. 1045 The Zone. Mr. Monday Night and Mickey hanging out here. Keith Bulluck in the studio. So you and I will be together today, and then we'll be together Friday. And is it what's Wednesday and Thursday? Is that the Lucas Panzica?
I'll hold down the fort.
And Mr. Monday Night? Man, that is going to be next level stuff right there.
That's going to be great.
So I know anytime you're on with Mike Keith, he always will just remember things, and you'll be like, I don't even remember that, Mike. Like Mike remembers things like nobody. Lucas remembers things like crazy. Lucas is the hard drive that I store some things on. Now, I can tell you what happened in the NFL in like 1970, just in the blink of an eye. But I don't remember anything from 4 weeks ago. Lucas remembers all that for me.
I can tell you Zach Wilson's stats in the 2018 Potato Bowl.
That's beyond stat guy recognition.
No, that's only because Robert Saleh cited it last week.
Okay. Is today the Potato Bowl again?
Today's the Potato Bowl.
That's terrible.
Yeah,
I can only imagine what the bowl gifts are like from the Potato Bowl.
Well, they can get stuff. You can give them anything now. It's not the suite where it's like, Keith, don't get over $200 worth of
Yeah, I
crappy
remember
watches.
that. It used to be that. Like, you'll get like a polo, you get a watch, you get like a toiletry kit.
You still got any of that?
I had my toiletry kit for a long time.
From a bowl game?
From a bowl game. It was from actually when we went to the Orange Bowl. Ooh, so I had my toiletry kit for, it was leather, Syracuse embroidered, what you name it. And I remember my best friend from college, he, rest in peace, he used to be like, Bull, I know you stole mine. I'm like, nah, bro, that's mine. You just lost yours. So, yeah, I mean, I never wore the watches, and, some of the gifts are all right.
Do you have a place where you keep all your stuff? Like, is there just a box in the attic that has all the watches and stuff in it? Where is all this stuff?
So it's funny. My wife and I were cleaning out the garage last week, about to do some renovations, and I've actually all my stuff, to answer your question, is in the lower part of the house. But I found my entire locker from when I packed it up in a box last week. So I have to go through my locker from when I retired from the Titans, because I literally just came in, I remember, and just threw all my stuff in a bag, and then eventually I dumped it in a storage box. So I'm interested to go through my Titans locker from 2010.
My goodness, I feel like this should be live streamed somewhere.
I like, if I was that savvy, I would try and do it, but I'm definitely like post out some of the things that I find. Some of the things that I found already is pretty funny. I was like, man, I remember this.
Yeah, I feel like there's some real potential. You like the first 50 people, to come to Just Love and, buy a coffee, have a chance to win the last jock strap that you wore, pair of your training shorts or something. I feel like there's some real potential.
You know what? You know what I'm really looking for? If I'm looking for anything, is Peyton Manning, when I retired, and he did this for, I think, just about everybody. He wrote me a letter, like, just, talking about, our times competing against each other, how I was a great competitor. I don't really even remember what it says, but I want to find that letter. So I'm in search for the Peyton Manning letter.
Man, do you think it's in the sack with the shorts and stuff?
Oh, man.
The half shirts?
Man. You know what? I have no clue, but you know what? I always come across one of those old pay stubs, and I used to get direct deposit. I just kind of wish that the Titans just owed me a few $1,000s.
The last time that you and I were on, I don't know what got us talking about it, but I remember distinctly we were talking about getting the contract, the second contract, the one that really has a chance to change your life.
Yeah, for sure.
And you were sitting in your condo. And don't tell me, you were sitting in your condo, and when you told me, I was like, I can picture, I know exactly where you lived. It was right up Old Hickory.
Yep.
It was, okay, you got to tell me.
It was off Old Hickory, Hearthstone townhomes, right up in there.
And you're sitting in there, and the phone rings, and it's your agent. He tells you, hey, man, we got your deal.
Yeah, I mean, I remember very distinctly, it's March, and I had just gotten out of the shower, and like maybe an hour and a half before, he's like, I remember I was just like, yeah, I'm cool. I just won a $10 million signing bonus. And then he calls me. He's like, we got him at 10-5. He's like, I'll call you back. And I'm like, cool. I'm like, great.
You were good.
Yeah.
Wait, just call me back to tell me yes.
And
right?
then he calls me back. He's like, okay, I got the deal done. Go down and sign your deal. It's 12-5, sign in. And then I was like, wow, man, Gary Richard, rest in peace. But yeah, because I used to always tell him, like, my first, when I wasn't getting on the field at first. And the first year I got on the field, I'm like, yo, G, we're going to break the bank. We're going to break the bank. He's like, kid, you just got to make some plays first. Like, I don't know about breaking the bank. He's like, you give me something to work with and I'll get you some more money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But that's just how I thought, and that's how I went about it. And it worked out for me. Actually, he was great at contracts. Gary Richard, he actually came up with the hybrid contract for Terrell Suggs, who was one of his clients, because T. Sizzle was listed as outside linebacker. That's how Baltimore would get him, outside linebacker, but he's leading the league in sacks as outside linebacker. So that's how they created that hybrid position for that 3-4 outside linebacker that the team used as a defensive end and would try and get them pay them as a stand-up 4-3 outside linebacker, when in actuality they're a, hand in the dirt, pass rush defensive end.
All right, that story caught my attention, and you certainly caught everybody's attention with your play. We're getting some fun comments in the Zone TV chat, but we do a segment each Tuesday. What caught your attention? Lucas Panzica, Keith Bulluck, I will let you guys go first. Keith, you're the guest. What caught your attention in the world of sports this week?
In the world of sports, and I am sure it caught everyone's attention on Sunday, it was the World Cup final. The World Cup final, and I said, if I paid that money to go from America to Carter, look, I don't know.
I've heard Qatar, Qatar.
I've heard
tomato,
it all.
tomato. Yeah.
I got my money's worth. And I feel everyone that just rolled out of bed on Sunday, they got their money's worth too on free Channel 5 Fox. You know what I mean? And I say that because the storylines that were there played out. We're used to seeing, our athletes, American athletes, go out there and do their thing. But we hear about Lionel Messi. We hear about Mbappe, who's a young, up-and-coming soccer player. And you just hear about them. But then to actually, you watch the game, you think Argentina got it. And then here comes France and Mbappe coming back like Michael Jordan in Game 7. And to see that at that level, so it's like, the old Messi, obviously, the old superstar hero, he brought it home. He did what he was supposed to do. They should have brought a horse into that stadium and let him ride out, And I feel like Mbappe, who's 23 years old.
Yeah.
What is it? The Golden Boot Award?
Yeah.
He was looking at that award like, I don't want this. Yeah. He wanted to bury it right there. So I think that, soccer or football gained a lot more, as it's been doing over the years, a lot more traction from fan bases all over the world. Worldly, it's a worldly game, obviously, but most importantly here in America, especially before one of our favorite pastimes, football. And then the Jags and the Cowboys they had a great follow-up to that game. So Sunday was a great football day.
Well, it sure was, no matter what kind of football that you choose.
Exactly.
Our resident soccer expert, Lucas Panzica, will chime in now.
Yeah, mine is related to that, but it's the viewership. So like what you're talking about, 22.8 million American viewers for the World Cup on Sunday. That's more than any World Series game this year. That's more than any World Series game in probably several years. That's awesome. That stuck out to me when I saw that number. I mean, everybody was talking about it. Your Twitter timeline was full of it, and it felt like everybody was watching it leading us right up to NFL kickoff. You could not have had a better game. The storylines could not have played out better. It was the best game on the highest possible stage in the world.
I have a question for you, Lucas, because I've heard you over throughout the World Cup, and I know how much you're into it. What do you think, or why do you think there's such a gap? And I think, I have my own answer, but I would like yours. Why do you think there's such a gap between the European international soccer player than the American soccer player here?
So development, I think the age of that development starts. Like, as an example, the U.S., you're going to put the biggest, fastest guy up top at striker, and he's going to score all the goals, and he's going to be the best player on the team until other guys are just as big and just as strong as him, and he doesn't have that technical development
skill
that's been happening since he was 6 years old.
Gotcha.
Christian Pulisic is one of the best American players on the planet right now. He's from Hershey, Pennsylvania. When he was 16, he moved to Germany. His family packed him up, moved him to Germany because he got an offer. He was noticed by a scout in Pennsylvania, got an offer to be a part of the Borussia Dortmund, one of the biggest clubs in Germany, their youth system, and get developed by some of the best coaches and trainers in Germany rather than just the American soccer system that just doesn't really hold a candle developmentally to,
Gotcha.
these countries where kids are literally being groomed from when they're 12 years old. Messi moved to Barcelona and joined the Barcelona Youth Academy when he was 14. He left Argentina, basically as a preteen. So that's pretty much it, the roots of the development of the sport.
I moved to a town that had a four-way stop when I was in the fourth grade, as opposed to a gravel road that I lived on with most of my relatives. So I understand that.
I mean, I made it to Syracuse going to a public school, so it totally makes sense. And the level of skill that, like, you check the footwork and the passes and everything that goes on. It's almost like even like hockey. When you watch hockey, you see how crisp the passes
Those
are.
people
And
are ridiculous,
like
man.
the puck handling. It's the same thing. Like, anything basket when you got to handle the ball, like the skill level is so advanced.
I think part of it, too, is, and let's be honest, in America, young Keith Bulluck, who's probably good at anything you pick up, probably a good basketball player, you'd be good at anything. In a lot of other countries, they'd be like, here's this really fast, long-limbed guy who can move and who is explosive and sudden. He's going to be the best soccer player. Yay! and here, the football coach would be like, you're not playing soccer?
Yeah,
Are you kidding me?
For sure. And that's, as an American, that's what I would say. As an American athlete growing up, like my wife was like, yo, why didn't, because she's into soccer. She watched the World Cup. And I was like, I didn't play soccer growing up. In gym, I played soccer, but I played baseball, football, basketball. So I think we have more options here. You see, we've seen basketball players and football players that can juggle the soccer ball and all that stuff, but their first love may have been soccer, but there's just too many options, I think.
Sure. I mean, look at LeBron. LeBron's what. And I don't want to get into LeBron versus Michael Jordan. I'm old, so I'm a Jordan guy. But I'll say this. He's one of the most unique and freaky. He's the size of a defensive end, Keith, and he can play point guard.
Yeah.
And he's 20 years in the league, and I know he's maybe not quite the LeBron of old, whether you like him or not. In other places, and I don't know if his height would have enabled him to, but all the people like him would have gone straight to the front of the line to these soccer academies that Lucas is talking about. Well, now they just go to, AAU basketball and 7-on-7, and they would just never see soccer, I would think. Now, you may have some
Ibrahimovic is 6, like LeBron's size. And he's an anomaly.
Here's the thing. You don't see, like, LeBron is what, 6'8"?
Yeah.
Ibrahimovic, I'd say 6'4", 6'6", 6'5",
I thought
which
he
is
was like 6'10".
No, which is 6'4",
He looked
6'5".
like it at times.
Yeah, he does.
Compared to Messi and all those dudes are my size.
Right. That's extraordinarily tall in the game of soccer. 6'8", 6'9", 250. Like, there's not.
How
really,
tall is Ronaldo?
Ronaldo, I'd say he's about 6'4". I'd have to look it up. But
Damn.
Messi's 5'7".
Wow.
I mean, so
I could totally post him up.
So it's you could probably post up Lionel Messi. He would just scoot under between your legs. He would just just
like
scoot
Keith
right
said. That's GOAT category. They should have brought a white horse and let him ride it off. They might as well have had one in their parade. Have you guys seen the video of their parade?
Oh, it's
Lucas,
unbelievable.
you probably have committed the whole thing to memory.
I would go there.
Yeah. There's literally 4 million people on the streets of Buenos Aires right now. But Cristiano Ronaldo's 6'2", actually. So,
right.
And that guy's one of the biggest, most commanding physical presences that's been on a soccer field in the last 15 years. So it's a lot more to it than just the athleticism. It's also the mental development of it, just kind of the positional intelligence of it. Just soccer is a very technical game that a lot goes into that side of it. So I think the conversation's a lot more complicated than, well, what if our best athletes played soccer?
I agree. I have one more question, and I'll digress. So Ronaldo didn't get much playing time. Obviously, they had another young stud, that was scoring hat tricks and stuff like that. So What does that mean? Ronaldo's a little long in the tooth, and I don't care that you're the international superstar. This is for country, and it's more than you. It's bigger than you.
Yeah,
that's what I read into.
It's like he's the aging star, and he hasn't really realized it yet. It's like he's refusing to acknowledge that.
I've been there before.
He's a bit of an egomaniac, and it's been a toxic situation with him and his club with Manchester United, and when they took him off and they stopped starting him, they won 6-1 over Switzerland. But he's probably still the greatest Portuguese player to ever, one of the best to ever play the game. But yeah, I think he's a guy that has reached that point in his career where it's starting to decline, but he just doesn't really.
It happens.
He
happens to the best.
Yeah,
of them.
I don't think he's come to terms with it.
We're just kind of glossing over this. Keith Bulluck, I've been that guy. I mean, if that was like, what? Rewind on the tape here.
For sure. Hey, I mean, look, it comes to a point where you just have the realization that a couple things. The game plan, you're not involved in the game plan as much, and that's either because they're going in a different direction or you just don't got it. And I think in my case, obviously, my ego is going to tell me is that they're just going in a different direction. But sometimes I look at the practice film and I'm like, yo, who is that out there? And it would be me gimping along and with the turf toe and recovered ACL and all these different things. And sometimes you just got to be a realist.
Is that Blaine has always, and again, this is Keith Bulluck hanging out for Blaine today. And Blaine's told the story, so I'm not speaking out of turn. He was here 9 years. Well, Houston here, this franchise. He goes to Philly. He basically makes a deal with himself. If I have one more surgery, that's it. That's what he made himself a deal. One more surgery, and that's it. And he had tore his groin and he had to have another surgery. So he was like, okay, that's it. I gave it everything I had. What did you set something like, if this happens, that means I'm done, or did you just have to realize it over time? How did that build for you?
Well, it built for me because, I had to come into a unique, perfect situation. I understood that, okay, I didn't have to start, but I wanted to play a role. And I was coming off of when they just had the lockout and the new collective bargaining agreement. So at that point, what I realized, and I had a new agent, my agent had just passed, was that they were bringing in younger bodies for camp. So they would get, 3 rookie linebackers for the price of Keith Bulluck in camp because they know, okay, we can call Keith Bulluck week 1 and he'll know what to do. He can catch up to speed. So for me, it just got to the point where I knew that, so maybe it was the second preseason game. I'm still out there training in California, and it's me and some other free agents. I'm just looking around, and I just called my agent at the time. I'm like, what's up, man? And he was like, yeah, you might be able to get something in week 1 or week 2, and he kind of explained the situation to me, and I didn't need it explained. At that point, I had put enough time in, and we were living in California, Los Angeles for the last 2 months while I was training. So we just booked a flight to Hawaii and went to Hawaii for 10 days, and I just stopped. That was it. That was it. And then we went back to New York and chilled.
It's interesting to me. Other sports, people seem to be able to get done with the sport. Like guys can go, I'm retiring from basketball today. I've decided I'm retiring from baseball today. Football seems to be the one sport that says, you're retiring from me whether you like it or not.
Yeah, and I always said that. No matter how much you want to play, you got a handful of guys. You got your Ray Lewis, your Tom Brady, or whoever that can, have that longevity and go out on their own terms. But football is going to let you know. The game is always going to let you know when you're done. I've seen it like that 95% of the time. If it was up to me, I would have come back to Tennessee healthy my last year and finished off like that, regardless what the team was doing, whatever. I retired here anyway. It gets to a point where, like in anything, in any occupation, you do your pros, your cons, and then you figure it out. So I did my pros, my cons, and the offers or the interest that I was getting, I didn't have interest in. So yeah, I had more interest in getting on with my life, and I had a great career for 11 years.
Sure did. The average guy plays less than 3. You left with even a nickname, Mr. Monday Night, which, my nickname is Nicky. So trust me, it could have been much worse. Mine, real quick, We'll come back. We'll tell you what's going on with Ryan Tannehill, what Tom Pelissero of NFL Network is reporting. We'll do that. Mine was Frank Gore Jr. Did you see what he did in the bowl game?
Yeah.
21 carries, 329 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was 2 of 3 passing. Also,
That's impressive.
that's why I watch all these bowl games, people. You just never know what you're going to find. Keith Bulluck is with us for the rest of this hour, all of next hour. You never know what you're going to find there either. That's coming up next on Blaine and Mickey.
Elsewhere, Ryan Tannehill's status for their game coming up this weekend also in doubt after he re-injured his right ankle this past weekend against the Chargers. Now, Tannehill gutted it out, got carted off, came back into the game. He is as tough as they come. If there's any way Tannehill can be on the field, he's going to be out there. But my understanding is this is an uphill battle for Ryan Tannehill to be ready this weekend, which means rookie Malik Willis, who got his first NFL start a couple months ago against the Texans, could end up starting against Houston again.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. Keith Bulluck hanging out for the Hitman today. Number 53, Mr. Monday Night, taking the place of number 23 today. So Tom Pelissero, NFL Network, reporting his phrase, Keith, uphill battle to play for Tannehill this week. Mike Vrabel said this. He spoke today, but yesterday he spoke too. With all my days are running together. He said of Malik Willis was probably the most comfortable that he has been. You've seen Malik Willis. You've seen the limited sample size. I'm sure you got to see his drive on Sunday. Where are you on Malik Willis and how you see him assimilating to the league right now?
Obviously, he still has a ways to go. I like that when he got in there on Sunday, he looked a little, more comfortable. Mm-hmm. I like if he has to play this week, he's played this team already. So he has some film to go and look at. He can really look at his performance. I wouldn't suspect that the Titans would change up the game plan much from the first time. Derrick Henry has to get, it's December. That's what everybody was talking. It's all you heard, D-Hember. Well, give him the ball. You know what I'm saying? You got to get Derrick Henry, especially now, over 25, 30 carries a game. That's what he wants. You saw his frustration last week. In that first drive of the second half last week, when they got it at the 40, they started with the pass to Hooper, got about 12 yards. Normally at that, as a defensive player, that's the take a shot field part of the field where offenses are trying to get a chunk, move the ball down the field. Titans don't have their take a shot guy, so they got a big enough chunk, 15, 16 yards. Come back with Derrick Henry, another 16-yard run, and then sack. Now it's 2nd and 19. You give it to Derrick Henry again. Now you're at 3rd and 9. But my thing is, and I said it on Twitter last night, there are certain points of the game where the Titans in the past have flexed their muscle and have taken over. And I feel that the reason I brought that drive up, because that was a very important drive because the Titans got no points right there. And then the Chargers went down the field and got points. So it comes down to the game plan. When you have the team reeling, you know what the knockout blow is. It's Derrick Henry, and we know in the first, and, you run him on first. Everybody has something to say about how Derrick Henry is utilized. But we all know from watching Titans football over the past 4-5 years, fourth quarter in December, give Derrick Henry the damn ball, man, because I feel that was formula for success. And last night, there was this one drive with Green Bay. Look, they featured A.J. Dillon all the way down the field, and A.J. Dillon, no disrespect to him, as good as a player he is, he's no Derrick Henry. So I feel if Malik has to go, you go back to the same formula you went last time with the Texans. You give Derrick the ball over 30 times. The defense played well enough last week to win, but if you keep sending them back out there against a guy like Justin Herbert and the wide receiver options that he has, they're going to make plays. So, I think it's very simple, and I think that Malik has a lot of support because you see guys like Hooper starting to make plays, and other people getting into the fold, and he just has to limit, obviously, turnovers and control and demand the game. Go out there with confidence.
We're right up against the break, but I'll ask you this. If we need to finish this on the other side, we can. We got another hour with Keith today. Do you think the lack of like you said, of giving December Derrick Henry, D-Hember the ball, which he only had 21 carries in the game, was that an offensive coordinator, I know better than this and I've got something better, or was that lack of faith in the offensive line because of how they struggled this year?
No, I think, look, players mess up. Maybe the offensive coordinator just messed up. You know what I mean? It's one of those things when it's 1st and goal. in that same drive when it's 1st and goal from the 6, hand him the ball. Don't throw him across. Like, don't move him, run him across the formation and throw him a pass. I'm not saying he couldn't have scored, but Derrick Henry's hands are 50-50. Let's be real about the situation. On a clean catch, he might score, but you got to be concerned about a clean catch. Straight handoff, he's going to get at least 3, 4. Give it to him again, another 3, 4. Obviously, they scored on that drive. I'm just talking about how the players are called and how Derrick Henry needs at least 8 to 10 more carries, especially in the fourth quarter of December football against defenses that aren't known for stopping the run.
And can I say this, Keith? The defense never let the score get separated in the game. They never took Derrick. They allowed Derrick to remain in the game plan.
And to what you're saying, Mickey, and those are the games earlier in the year when the Titans went on their winning streak, like they would just feature Derrick and don't let Green Bay get on the field so Aaron Rodgers can bring them back. They controlled the ball from the Titans' offensive side, so the opposing offense couldn't get on and put up points.
We'll put up points in the second hour of the show. Another hour with Keith Bulluck, Coach Mack, who is Keith Bulluck's coach. He's going to join us in hour number 2. We got headlines, so we come back next. A whole nother hour with Mr. Monday Night on Blaine and Mickey. start the NFL. Blaine and Mickey 1045 The Zone. I think we should do this again. I think we should just play it both hours. If you're just getting in the car, maybe you're still working like us. We're hardworking people, even though it's the week of Christmas. Maybe you're doing some shopping or whatever. Hitman getting some well-deserved time off. So Lucas, Rip Ryan went to a lot of trouble. Let's introduce them to today's special guest co-host.
He is Mr. Monday Night. It's official. It's official. It's official.
Bad snap. Garcia goes back to pick it up. 20, pitches it back to Bulluck, who will take it in the end zone for a touchdown. Titans blocked. Who falls on it? The Titans do. Touchdown, Titans. Who else? Keith Bulluck. Keith Bulluck. Keith Bulluck. Bulluck heaves it into the stands. He's a thief. He just stole it from Harrington. And the Titans have a big six. Under some pressure, fires down the middle, intercepted Bulluck. Breeze stays in the shotgun. Feels a little heat. Hit as he throws, ball tipped up in the air. Bulluck's got it. Breeze dropping on second down, firing deep down the middle. Bulluck intercepts it. And he slides down at the 35. Bulluck with 3 interceptions. He is Mr. Monday Night. It's official. It's official. It's official. It's official.
The one and only Keith Bulluck, Mr. Monday Night. I feel like we need
It's official.
Crowd applause after that. I love it. 21 career interceptions for Keith Bulluck. Do you have a favorite interception, or is there one interception ball that maybe sits above the mantle in the Bulluck abode? One.
I have 3. I was only as many times as I played Peyton Manning. I have 3 interceptions against him, and none of them were easy. And one was easy. Vanden Bosch tipped it, and it just kind of came to me. But one, I picked it off at the line of scrimmage, which I had done in practice before, like the Steve McNair. So it was pretty cool to do it in the game, because in practice when you do it, people are like, yo, did he just catch that at the line of scrimmage? It just stops practice. And then another one, I was a one-hand lefty. I don't even know how I caught it. So I was being held. So he's the ultimate competitor, and anytime you get the opportunity to make a play and that helps your team win against the Sheriff, you remember it. So yeah, that was cool. I had 21, so there were a lot. But yeah, any of the plays I got to make against Peyton Manning, because we didn't beat those guys too often.
Blaine said at one point he looked down at his feet, and he said Peyton was looking at his feet. Peyton was literally in real time looking at the safety's feet to figure out what he was going to do.
Yeah.
That's how next level he was thinking.
Yeah, I learned early it didn't make sense to fake blitz, and he'll be like, "Move, 42, you ain't coming, Bulluck." Bulluck, you ain't coming.
Wait, so you would say that?
Yeah, you ain't coming, because he knows our defense. So we caught him off guard a couple times. One time is a real big play. We had a double blitz off the right side, and Tank Williams was able to get a hit on him. I scooped and scored for a touchdown. And every time he saw that, he would always adjust. So, yeah, he's super sharp, super, super, super sharp.
He had 6 career touchdowns.
Yeah. I made some plays, man. I made some plays out here.
when you were younger, because I'm always interested to ask people who make it to the NFL level of football, because it's always like, okay, what people like me who are regular people, I was playing cornerback wearing number 84 because I love Billy White Shoes Johnson.
Right.
There was no chance I was, and really I didn't play much there, but it's like just try to funnel him back towards bigger people. Just keep outside contained.
Right.
Don't get killed.
Right.
But guys like you, I was the kicker, I was the quarterback, were you just all of those things?
Yeah, I didn't really like quarterback. I didn't like quarterback at all, but I played running back, wide receiver, and safety. And then I go to wide receiver if it was like 3rd and long, and they're throwing me the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was the athlete. I was definitely athlete in high school.
And you went to Syracuse as a safety.
I could have played offense. I just made the decision I'd rather give the hits than take them. I did get smacked a couple times in high school. It wasn't too. It didn't feel too good. Not that I was afraid. I just knew I'm just smart. I'd rather give the hits than take them.
So you were like Javon, where you started out and you keep getting closer and closer to the line of scrimmage as you move up from level to level of football.
Yeah. I got coming out of high school, I wanted to initially go to University of Michigan, and they did recruit me, but they recruited me as a linebacker. And in high school, my senior year, I was 195 pounds, and all the linebackers in New York, you had Carl Banks, you had Lawrence Taylor, you had Pepper Johnson. Like, I'm like, ain't no way I'm a linebacker. I want to be the next Ronnie Lott. You know?
Right.
So that's when I went to Syracuse, and 2 years later, Syracuse got me with the banana in the tailpipe, and I'm at linebacker. It all worked out, though.
Were they at least kind of like sneaky about it? Like, Keith, why don't you go sit in the locker when the linebackers meeting today?
They were sneaky because when I got there, I asked for number 3. They gave me 33. Then I remember I redshirted, like all redshirt year. I remember I was mad. They always had me on scout team as the opposing team's star outside linebacker. But then I played safety. I played a full season at safety, had some picks, made some plays. So I'm thinking I'm about to be the starting strong safety in the spring. Wrong. Wrong. Bulluck, we're moving you to outside. I was 208 pounds, soaking wet.
Okay.
Made it happen. I was tough, though. Like, at that point, it was like, I just want to get on the field. You know, at that point, I just want to get on the field. I said I was tough, but, like, this is football in the 90s. You're not playing college football if you ain't tough. Like, forget about it. You got triple sessions, pads every day. Like, you got to be tough. The kicker had to be tough because they're the tackling dummies at that point.
Keith Bulluck from Syracuse winds up here in Nashville. I wrote down like all these questions, and I know we're going to talk about the Titans and all this stuff, but I wanted to ask you this. Do you remember where you would remember this. For people who don't know, tell people where the last place you played a college football game was.
At that time, I believe it was Adelphia Stadium in the Music City Bowl.
That's right.
Yep.
If this had been a thing, because at this point, you know, like, I'm about to go to the NFL. If this had been a thing, would you have been like, "There's no way on God's earth I'm playing in the Music City Bowl. I'm opting out."
Well, to answer that story, to answer that question, I'm gonna tell this story. So we started off that season 5-0. We finished, I think, 7-5. And Coach Pasqualoni is like, we got invited to the Music City Bowl. It's a new bowl. We can vote who wants to go. I was a senior. I was just ready to go, get ready for the combine. I knew the agent I was training with, who I was going with. So I would have voted not to go. I would have definitely sat out this bowl game. I'm glad I didn't know. We won, and that first game, I had the record for about like 15 years for the most tackles in Music City Bowl history. So,
did you look around all the Southern hospitality and think, gosh, what would it be like to wind up in a place like this?
No way. The only reason I knew... No way. In Nashville in 99, I think it was like, where did we go out? I think we went to like Bar Nashville, like, or something like that. Like,
Have a Nice Day Cafe. Did you hit that up?
I didn't hit anything.
Buffalo Billiards.
We stayed at the Sheridan right there, maybe like kind of like by where Jeff Ruby's is in that area. That we stayed over there, and it was nothing. Come on, man. You know what Nashville was in 99.
Well, I was here. Hey, you might have seen me play music if you went out there, but I was killing it then, kid.
It was cool though. It was cool to be drafted here. Like, dang, that's the last. You know what I mean? So it all worked out.
It's funny how things kind of work, but I kept thinking, like, didn't he play in the Music City Bowl? Yeah, and had a big game, literally, and then realized that was your last game. And I started thinking about the opt-out aspect. I'm not surprised by anything, but when guys say, "Hey, I'm going to skip the Poulan Weed Eater Bowl, and I'm going to go ahead and go," I'm always happy for that guy. I mean,
Yeah.
I know there are people he's quitting on the team. Nobody on the team thinks he's quitting. The guys on the team are like, there, but by the grace of God, I'll be in your cleats one day, and I can opt out and prepare for the draft.
Yeah, I think that I've thought about it in multiple ways, but then again, it really matters what your teammates feel. And at the end of the day, your teammates usually have their best interest because whoever's playing behind you, they're ready to get that opportunity. In a way, your team is almost like a preseason game, maybe, so to speak. You
Exhibition.
can kind of see as a coaching staff, you can kind of see what you got to work with your younger guys, know the positions you can put them in, how you need to develop them, or even if you need to get them off the field. You get to see a lot of different things. But I think for those players, because we've seen it often when someone gets hurt in their bowl game and, it drops their draft status.
Well, we were talking earlier about getting watches for bowl games and things like that. I mean, it's a trip. It's an exhibition. You get to see shows, and, somebody on the team gets hypnotized one night, after you eat your dinner. And it's just more of a reward for all the hard work that you do. It's a chance to go and do a fun activity. For the guys who are never going to play again, like that dude that 5'0", 100, hey, man, you get to lace him up one more time, brother. And you get a watch and a polo shirt with the Bowl logo. That guy's going to go out and play like it is the last game of his life.
Yeah, and I remember our last trip because it's obviously it's with your boys, and like you're speaking to, there's a lot of guys that's their last game. I still have that picture that me and all my senior teammates we took in front of the bowl. In front of the scoreboard with the Music City in the background and the final score and all zeros. So you go back and look at that. Almost 20 years ago, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, definitely.
And you mentioned this earlier, and I know you just kind of mentioned in passing, a great friend of yours who's no longer with us.
Right, absolutely.
So you got to go shoulder to shoulder with that guy. I mean, that's a memory that you get to carry forever. And I don't care if the last game you played was in high school, you still own that. You own that. You own those bus rides, and you own sitting in the locker room after practice and busting on each other and just that shared hard work. When you start a football season, it's as hot as it's going to get. And when you finish, it's as cold as it's going to get and everything in between. So you own all that together.
Yeah. And, I always say, and people come up to me often and they talk about football and they'll be like, well, I didn't play at the level you played at. And for me, that's obsolete because even if you played at high school, you still went through double sessions. You still was out there when it was 90 plus degrees. You still, felt like throwing up or did throw up. You went through every single thing that I've ever gone through or a professional football player has gone through, but we just got to the highest level. And all those things that you went through in high school made you better in certain spaces when you got a job or you became a leader of your whole staff or those type things, lessons that are taught in football at high school level, if that's as far as you make it. College is as far as you make it. There are life lessons that will help you. And even me as a professional, played 11 years, now managing, running, and operating a cafe, I take what I learned from football, being a captain, to kind of manage and operate my shop because that's what I know. It's effective. It might not be, Starbucks, how they do it or whatever, but I know how to do it to get it done for me and my team, and it works.
Well, fun having you today, and we're going to keep this discussion going. And, if you're going to have Keith Bulluck on, why not have one of his coaches on? Coach Mack is going to join us next. Maybe we'll start with this. We'll get him to tell us a story about Keith Bulluck. Nobody tells stories like Coach Mack. And he will join us next right here on Blaine and Mickey with special guest host Keith Bulluck. Well, you hear the music. We're efforting Coach Dave McGinnis. It is time for Coach Mack to join us. Hopefully, we'll have him on here in just a minute. Keith Bulluck is sitting in for Blaine today. Coach Mack always joins us at this time on Tuesday. It's not like he's not busy, though, KB. He is busiest retired from football coaching guy that I know. He's the coach for Titans radio now.
The man of many trades. Mac stays busy.
How many years were you guys able to spend with each other?
I believe 6.
6
I believe
years.
it was 2004. Yeah, maybe 6, maybe even 7. 2002. So I had Schwartz my first year. Jim Schwartz was my head linebacker coach my first year. The next 2 years was Gunther Cunningham. So yeah, from
Rest his soul,
2004 to 2000, it was 6 years.
Favorite Coach Mack story that you can share? I see the phone ringing now, so we'll get one about you. But favorite Coach Mack story that you can share and say the words maybe that were said.
Man, you know what?
On public radio.
Favorite. You gotta understand. I sat next to this gentleman for 6 years. So my favorite stories is when we're sitting back watching film, and then he coaches. And he, coaches up one of the guys, and it might be something simple, but obviously Coach Mack is a professional. He's being a coach and, describing it, what he's supposed to do. And then it just be me and him sitting back there, and he'll turn and look at me and smirk, what is this guy thinking? Because he knows it's easy for us, but he's still a coach. So it's it was always cool. Coach Mack kept it 100 with everybody. And then even those little gestures is as I say, he's a coach, but at the same time, he kept it light, especially if you handled your business and you did what you were supposed to do. And, he ain't no babysitter. He's a grown, that's what he'll tell you. So I appreciated that. And the stories Coach Mack has, yeah.
Well, he's on with us right now, Coach. That's Keith Bulluck talking about you there. You guys spent a few hours together, a few thousand hours once upon a time.
A few thousand.
First of all, Mickey, you never have to introduce Keith Bulluck's voice to me. He and I sat next to each other for a long time. And let me just say this, and of course, I coached a lot of great players in my time, especially at the linebacker position, where I cut my teeth with the Bears. With that group was some of the all-time greats. And I told KB this before. You guys know me. I don't say things unless I mean them and really feel them. KB could have fit in with that great group of the Bears immediately because Keith Bulluck was a legitimate professional football player. He was a legitimate dude, and the best I can say is he was a true pro. And I don't throw those accolades out to many because getting paid is not being a professional. Keith Bulluck, as I said, I would ride with Keith Bulluck anytime just because of the things that we've been through, but also the way he handled a lot of things because when the Titans had to clear a salary cap and were really down in personnel, much like what's going on right now with the injuries, but then it was salary cap problems. Keith Bulluck was the mainstay. He was the dude that we rebuilt that thing around. And so he will always have much respect from me. Anytime I'm on the air or in person or in private, one of my favorite dudes of all time.
Word, vice versa, Coach.
It's got to be something, Coach Mack, though, to know that your scheme and the things you're trying to teach, to know that you're sitting next to a guy that there's nothing you can't dream up that he can't go and do for you, that he's not limited in any way, and then knowing that he can just go and achieve at any level you need him to go and achieve to get things done.
Well, he understood it, too. He understood the reason why, and he also was willing. He's a lot like I take Keith Bulluck a lot like I took Mike Singletary or like I took Aeneas Williams, which are two Hall of Fame players. There was never anything I ever asked them to do, game plan-wise, that they weren't willing to do. They were always, Keith Bulluck, Singletary, Aeneas Williams, in their positions, were always willing to, because you got to have dudes that are willing to wear a hat. You got to be able to wear the hat, during game plans, because there's specific things you're asked to do. Now, sometimes KB would look sideways at me, just like, Aeneas would sometimes, and Singletary would. The time I can remember the most is when we were going to play Atlanta and Michael Vick. I said, KB, you're going to spy Michael Vick this whole game. And he said, really? He said, you understand all this stuff we're watching on film he's doing to professional athletes, don't you? I said, you can handle it. And guess what? He did. We won. But when I first presented it to him, he went, now, Mac, I know you're watching the same tape I am. I
ain't trying to be on nobody's highlight tape.
Exactly what he said. He said, I've seen too many dudes on his highlight tape. I'm not trying to be on it. And he wasn't. And we won that game. And anytime we played Kansas City and Tony Gonzalez, you talk about matchups, KB had Tony Gonzalez. And he really used to kind of get a little upset with Schwartzy and myself when we used to vice Gonzalez sometimes. KB said, don't waste another guy up here. Do something else with him. I got him. Those are the kind of dudes you want.
Man, Keith Bulluck is that dude. Coach Mack is that dude. Coach Rock. Mac, brought to you by the folks at Farm Bureau Health Plans. Look to them when you need someone who knows the healthcare coverage game plan they've been protecting Tennesseans for 75 years. Coach Mack hanging out with Keith Bulluck and me. No big deal.
Hey, Coach Mack, when, put your coaching hat on. I don't feel like you ever take it off. But in this situation, I look at it like this. Mickey asked me earlier, if I were on the team, what would my message be? And my message, I said, would be like, I'm looking everybody in the face. It falls on us. Obviously, the coaches are putting the game plan together, but as a player, we have to go out there and execute. And I feel like I heard Big Jeff say that the weekend that they lost after John Robinson left, or was fired, I should say. As a coach, when you're back to the wall, what can you tell your players, especially when you know they're down, but you have to fight?
Well, and that's 100% true, Keith. And that is, regardless of the circumstances in the National Football League, coaches and players, you are charged, we are charged, because you and I have both done it, deep inside of it. You're charged with doing everything you can to try to win the game. Now, when you are presented with some things that are out of your control, injuries are out of your control. When you were playing, that salary cap purge was out of your control. You still have to do everything. The biggest thing you've got to be able to do, especially as a veteran player, and I love Jeffrey Simmons. You'd have loved playing with him because veteran players in times like this are never, ever a distraction. They are the guys that are saying, and they understand sometimes when you're playing with guys now, not only backups, but backups to backups, and they're being put in situations, all you can do is do everything that you can within your power and within your ability, but also you've got to give the younger players and the inexperienced players confidence. And you give them confidence by the way you prepare during the week and then just by your actions, regardless of how the flow of the game is going. And I think that's extremely important. I can remember some rough times, Keith, on the sideline. I always would go to you on the phones and say, hey, KB, calm everybody down a little bit. Just calm them down because we've still got a long way to play here.
Including
that's
myself.
Very important. Yeah, but you understood the gravity of it. I mean, some guys that have never been under it, the stress of what it is playing in the National Football League, especially guys that are coming in, some of these guys with the situation the Titans are in now, they're coming in on Monday and Tuesday, getting a game plan, and then not just playing fill-in roles, had to play starting roles, for 50 and 60 snaps. So it's very important that your veteran players and also your coaches, you've got to not only, talk about confidence, you've got to display confidence. That's extremely important.
Coach Mack hanging out with us courtesy of our friends at Farm Bureau Health Plans. Coach, I'm not trying to get you fired up or anything, but I'm literally hoping you can help me understand. How was that grounding on Malik Willis on the play where he was called for grounding when it was also defensive offsides and a player cuts off his route? How is that grounding? How is there no nuance with that?
Well, first of all, it's a non-reviewable play. That's number one to begin with. And so number two, and Mike Vrabel was very succinct. I mean, he did just what I did when I was coaching. And some of those calls, were very questionable and you don't agree with it. You can't do anything about it. Yeah. You really can't. I mean, there is no recourse to it. So really, when you start talking about it, especially during the game, Mickey, now you can talk about it. You get paid to talk about it. But as a coach, you've got to accept it and just move forward. In my humble opinion, it was not. There was a receiver going that way. He broke off a route, but the quarterback was not under duress. Malik Willis made it. You had the guy jump off sides. Malik Willis correctly was trying to execute a free play. Now, the receiver broke it off, but the fact that the quarterback was not under duress and let it go freely, clearly you've got to understand the context of the throws. It was not, but it will be forever, and it impacted the game because the officials called it. And we can go as deep as we want to on officials. You really don't want me to. Look, here's what in all the 31 years that I coached, I couldn't say a word because I understand what it is, and I understand what you sign up for as a coach, as an administrator in this league. But the officials are not infallible. They are not. And especially this year, there have been some things that have gone on that I'm sure that everybody's going to address at the owners' meetings. To answer your question, Mickey, which is a very clear and concise question and rightfully asked, it was not grounding.
You mentioned Malik Willis playing in the game. I'll ask you about this. We saw a small sample size of him on Sunday. There's a chance, we don't know if Ryan Tannehill, who received another ankle injury, if he'll be able to go a week shorter this week playing on Saturday. Your thoughts on the little bit that you saw from Malik? As Keith pointed out earlier in the show, this would be his second start if he were to start against the Texans. He's seen them. He's got film of him playing against them. Just curious to get your thoughts on where you feel like Malik is right now.
I think Malik has grown maturity-wise even since that time. Look, every time Malik practices extremely hard. He is the show team quarterback, but with that, he is encouraged to make plays and make reads, within the context of what he's doing, not to do anything silly just because he's a show team quarterback. I think he's grown. I thought he showed a lot of poise, when he came in there. But his growth is because he's worked. I mean, he's a worker. And the issue is he's just not very experienced. I mean, I can tell Keith right there, Keith, you would love him as a teammate. I mean, just like you would love Ryan Tannehill as your quarterback because he's willing to step in there and do whatever he has to do. And part of that is helping Malik Willis right now. But I think Malik Willis on his own, guys, has really taken a step forward. Is he ready? Is he a complete product yet? Please, we're not saying that at all. But you could tell just with the confidence that he stepped in there with, if in fact he is called upon to do it again. I think having done it once before, and Keith can speak to this as a player, the first time you do it, there's so much of an unknown, you really are a little bit unsettled. Now that he's done it, I think he'll be much better.
Coach Mack hanging out with Keith Bulluck and me here on Blaine and Mickey.
Coach, what is it with the learning curves of these quarterbacks? Because we're speaking about Malik. Obviously, he was a third-round pick coming out. They were projecting him as a first round. You look at the kid Zach Wilson and with the Jets, and then you look at his Mike White, who comes in and acts like he belongs. And then I take you to San Francisco, the kid Purdy, he looks like he belongs. So what separates? And then obviously I played with Vince Young, who was a rookie and won Rookie of the Year. So I have yet to know how the scouting goes by picking these quarterbacks and what makes one quarterback coming out at the same time more ready to play than the next.
Well, first of all, Keith, I think it's background of where most of these guys now are playing in offenses that are, first of all, the field dimensions are different in collegiate football. They've got much more space to work with. They're single reads. There's not, it's all RPO, and it's pretty much single read things. The defenses are not as complex at all because of this, Keith. They've only got 20 hours to teach these guys things in college, and that includes the time they're on the practice field. So the issue with that is how detailed, how much time did we spend together going over game plans? The time that you put in is not the same. So they're not nuanced at all on things like this that go on. So it's a extreme learning curve when they get into it. And the other thing is the people that they are competing against now, in collegiate ball, especially if you're at a Power 5 school that's really good, you're probably better than most people you're playing until you get into your conference play. And then there's probably one or two that really challenge you, and the others, because not everybody has dudes like that. So the issue is it's not only learning an entirely new way of life in the National Football League. Let's take football out of it. But it's also understanding the nuances. Most of these quarterbacks that come into the league now, Keith, first thing they got to learn how to do is call a play in a huddle and take a snap.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Think of that. Think of how fundamental that is. And then you start talking about all the blitzes that we used to draw up on third down night just to try to confuse the quarterbacks, and all the things that we did and everything that we do. These guys coming in brand new are expected to pick that up, because once you get in the ball game, you're expected to be able to execute all of it. So it's time on task. And then some people are just wired differently. You know it, and I know it. Some guys never, and you're one of those guys. The pressure never really affected you. All right. Some guys, even with the ability, pressure bothers them for a little while until they get their feet on the ground. So I think all of those things factor in. And so to me, that's why I say Malik Willis had to learn everything new when he came in here. And we saw just some of the decisions he made in that last ball game. When to run, took 3 reads, then took off running, and then he slid. He went down, got his first down, got back up, got back in the huddle. It's just time on task, but the learning curve is so vast, it's so big that it takes time. Time on task is the key phrase here.
Sweet.
Coach Mack hanging with us. Coach, only got a little over a minute left. I'll just ask you, the Texans have played 2 extremely close games against good teams the past 2 weeks, the Cowboys and the Chiefs. They've got some kind of 2-quarterback system going on right now. What have you seen from the Texans as they continue to play really hard for Lovie Smith?
Well, they're playing extremely hard, and here's what I think. They've got a lot of veterans on their team that have not – I'm not talking about veterans that have been there a long time, but veterans that have been in the league that are still healthy right now, and they've got a mix of young guys. Let's go back to the first part of our conversation today. Veteran players giving younger players confidence, regardless of their age or regardless of how long they've been in it. They've got veteran players on their team, like Jerry Hughes. He's a guy that's played a long time in this league, and he's playing really, really good football right now. And here's the other thing with this football team, guys. Now, let's just be honest. They're sitting there as to where they are playing with house money every game, because what's on the line now is what they are trying to earn, in the future for themselves and for that franchise. Because so you talk about no pressure, they are under zero pressure, and a lot of times when you're doing that, that frees your mind a little bit to be able to play a little bit more comfortably. And you watch the tape, you look at them, you go, these dudes are playing. I can tell who's playing hard and who's not when I'm watching the tape. I may not be able to tell you what the scheme is, but after 37 years, I can tell you who's been playing hard, and who's not, down in and down out. They've got that going down there in Houston.
Well, they're going to bring it up here Christmas Eve on a cold night. Rhett Bryan says, and I believe him, Coach Mack, because he knows all this Titans history, says it's going to shatter the record for coldest game in Titans history.
Dang.
And
I'm definitely not going to be there.
On a frigid Christmas Eve. I'll tell you who will be there, Coach Mack and Mike Keith and Rhett Bryan and poor Titans Amy. They'll be telling you everything that happens.
I'll definitely get a listen. I listen to Mike Keith and Coach Mack every game, at least for 15, 20 minutes, but I'm not going to be outside.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Well, we know who won't be there, Coach, but we know who will. And you and Rhett Bryan with Mac Talk tonight as well, the best in the business. And it was fun getting to hear you and Keith cut it up a little bit for sure today.
Hey, Keith Bulluck will be there in spirit, I know. Keith Bulluck will never be very far away from the Titans in spirit. I know that.
That's a fact.
Amen to that. Coach, thanks for the time today. We'll be listening to Mac Talk tonight.
Guys, appreciate you. KB, always great catching up, man. See you.
Man. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Keith. See you. See you, Mickey. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Coach Mack. Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas to everybody. God bless us all. This is a Christmas-tinged episode of Blaine and Mickey. All right, when we come back, what did Tom Pelissero say about Ryan Tannehill? He said it's going to be an uphill battle for him to play this week. Tom Pelissero of NFL Network. What did Mike Vrabel say about Ryan Tannehill? We'll hear from the Titans coach next. Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. So Tom Pelissero reported on a handful of NFL players. Included in that was him saying about Ryan Tannehill, it was expected to be an uphill battle. Tannehill has had 3 separate ankles, and he's only got 2, so that means one's been injured twice. Uphill battle for Tannehill to play this week. So Mike Vrabel has spoken again today because we're in total chaos with what day is what because they're not playing on Sunday. Normally Tuesday we don't hear from anybody. We heard from Mike Vrabel and Derrick Henry and Roger McCreary, who was just a delight today. And by the way, that play that he made, Keith, I'm going to jump out of bounds, catch it, and throw it back to Kalu. Amazing stuff by Roger McCreary. But what did Mike Vrabel say about Ryan Tannehill? Let's hear from the Titans coach from earlier today.
Well, and does he need to practice at all to be available?
I don't know if that necessarily is the case. That he's got a great grasp of what we're trying to do. The short week, we're trying to not make it as short. With what we're trying to do today, as far as working and just trying to come in and get back and get going. Physically, it'll be somewhat of a short week just because the turnaround and what we feel like we can do today, and then we'll continue to add as we move through the week. But we'll still, I think, have the same amount of time in the preparation and meetings. We'll get going here in a little bit, allow these guys to get some rest and then get some treatment.
You played, again, this is Keith Bulluck hanging out for Blaine today. You played with Steve McNair. And I wasn't there. I wasn't part of the media. I was here still playing music and doing some other things at that point. But the thing about McNair was, the game would start and Mike Keith would go, Steve hasn't practiced this week. So he was that guy, Mike Vrabel, saying, well, Tannehill wouldn't necessarily need to practice to play. So let me phrase it this way, Keith, for you. There's Coach Mack busted into the studio. Let me ask you this. And Coach Mack, if he wants to grab a microphone, so Ryan Tannehill or any player who is a solid starter, a good NFL player, at what point do you say, I'll take this guy at this percentage over his backup? When does the switch happen to where you say he's diminished at the point where the backup is a better option?
I think in Ryan Tannehill's case, there is no better option because we've seen the better option. And nothing against Malik. He's just not at the point where if Ryan Tannehill's not playing that me personally are comfortable that the game plan is going to go exactly the way it is. Obviously, he's proven that he can win games, but there is no better option than Ryan Tannehill right now, especially in the position that the Titans find themselves in this late in the season.
100% correct. I mean, it could even be more spot on.
Yeah.
If you had a veteran backup, then it's a different story. But you got a young guy, and Ryan. That's why Ryan Tannehill fought so hard to get back in that game out there at SoFi, and that's what you want out of your quarterback. Now, if he can hurt himself and can't protect himself and can't go, well, then that's a different story. But if he can go, ask this guy right here how many times he played when it wasn't real comfortable to play. There were times when I tried to talk him out of it, and he wouldn't hear it. So. That's just the mindset. That's what they've got, and that's where we are.
Sure.
Especially the quarterback, and he's like, you got to think about what Ryan went through all this past off season, and the team, struggling right now, and he knows he's one of the leaders, and he's the one that can lead them to the promised land. I don't feel his mission of that he set on for this season is over by any stretch of the imagination. They're on a 4-game skid. They were on a 6-game winning streak. So at this point of the season, December late, you got to let them hang. It's on you. It's everybody in that locker room, coaches included, and whatever they say before they go out Sunday before that game, they got to believe in it. Nobody else in that stadium has to, but those guys have to believe in it when they touch that sign and say whatever they say before kickoff. So that's what it's about now.
100% right. He said it. He said it all. But he's been there. I've been there. I know what these circumstances are, and there's no magical cure. But the start of everything starts with the people doing it, and that's just all what you say. You cannot control your circumstances. You can control the way you face your circumstances. And by the way, I walked in here and I'm talking ball with Kevin Dyson too, so I get to talk ball. Nice. I get to talk ball today with two of my favorite dudes that wore the Titans uniform. So how about that for Coach Mack's day? All right. I'm out.
All right, Coach Mack. Yeah, he was in, and he's also out the
That's
door.
my
Just kidding.
guy.
This is a really heavy door. It doesn't just fly open, and it
The
just
wolf.
flew open. And there's Coach Mack just standing there.
If you watch Pulp Fiction, the wolf.
No, man, Coach Mack is the wolf. All right, Saturday game. We got about a minute left, Keith, before we got to give it up to whatever wonderfulness is about to happen here. Dyson and Coach Mack and the crew, probably Ron Slay. He was handling it solo yesterday.
Slay-Do.
Slay,
It's Dyson and Slay.
Oh, my God.
Oh, wow.
It's the Home Alone version of 3HL with Slay.
Oh.
You just can't lose on
It's
this
about to
station.
get crazy.
Whatever's showing
At
up.
least Dyson is Dr. Dyson, and he can keep some professionalism. Slay's on point.
Well, could Dr. Dyson help heal Ryan Tannehill's ankle a little sooner? Because this is a Saturday game, Saturday night, as opposed to Sunday. Takes a day away of your rehab.
Right. So what you said to me, Steve McNair, it'd be Wednesday. You come out, you see him sitting in his jersey with probably a bomber coat on, and you ask him, Mac, you gonna go on Saturday? I don't know. We'll see, buddy. And then it's Thursday. You ask him, I don't know. We'll see, buddy. Friday, and then Saturday, he wakes up from his nap, stretches. He's out there throwing with Joey. Brad Brown checks him out. Mac, you going? Let's go, buddy. Let's go kick some butt. So I believe, I'm a believer in Ryan Tannehill. He's been showing that moxie that I used to see around here back in the day.
Keith, this was so much fun, man. Thanks for hanging out with
Yeah,
me.
I
It's
appreciate
over.
y'all
It's the
having
whole
me.
thing.
That's it?
Yeah, we're done.
Lucas, I'll see you tomorrow.
Let's
You
do
know
it.
it.
Lucas and KB tomorrow, and the next day, then KB and me again on Friday. Can't wait. I can't wait to hear what's next, too. Just stick and stay on the zone all the time. We'll see you tomorrow. In the meantime, though, and in between time,
Peace.